Hello and welcome to the news at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland tonight. The thousands of children on hidden waiting lists for autism and ADHD assessments. That's according to medical experts, despite the Scottish Government recently hitting its waiting times target for youth mental health services for the first time. The pros and cons of nationalisation as the UK Government takes over British Steel, and the First Minister calls for the same treatment for Grangemouth. Talking about cancer on social media, we hear from one young woman about how it's helped her. We will, of course, have all the sport with Lewis. What have you got for us tonight, Lewis?
Well, Amy, we hear from the St Mirren camp after the club secured an historic finish in the top 6 yet again. And we take a look at all the post-split fixtures coming up.
And the Highland Cow Calves bringing joy to a city park. Hello, I'm Amy Irons and welcome to the news at 7. Thanks for being with us. Well, there is a warning that children are coming to harm while on hidden waiting lists for autism and ADHD assessments. Child mental health targets have been met for the first time in a decade, but the figures exclude people specifically referred for neurodivergent conditions, so that's things like autism and ADHD. The Royal College of Psychiatrists say these children are left on hidden internal waiting lists with no idea when they will get the help that they need. The government says it acknowledges long waits are not acceptable and has invested more money in services. 16-year-old Rosie was referred to Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, or CAMS as we know it, when she was 8, but then waited 5 years before she was diagnosed with autism and able to access the help that she needed. She says finally getting the answers she was looking for has had a huge impact on her life.
So my grandparents, right when I came to live with them, tried to get me referred to CAMS, and that took quite a while. So that was when I was 8 and I was 9 by the time that I saw them. And I had a very long process with them, so I didn't get my first diagnosis of autism until I was 13 and a half. So it took like 5 years. It was very confusing for some parts because I didn't understand what was causing it to take so long. I think for all 3 of us, my grandparents included, they just really wanted to know that I had something, and people didn't just think that I was not spoiled, but just didn't understand me. They wanted some concrete things that I could explain to people why I am the way that I am. It had gotten to the point where I almost had been looking into autism my own, but getting that confirmation, it was quite emotional. I cried after it, but I think kind of the weeks following, it just gave me a better understanding of myself.
And thanks to Rosie for sharing her story with us. Well, joining me now is Susie Martin from the National Autism Society Scotland. Susie, thanks so much for joining us in the studio tonight. Just how surprised were you to hear that actually these figures, the number of young people waiting for a diagnosis, is not actually included in the official CAMS figures?
So we weren't surprised. We have been calling for years for the Scottish Government to publish the waiting times statistics for autism assessment and diagnosis. It was surprising to hear that some areas are now just simply not including referrals within those statistics. We thought they were hidden within the CAMS statistics. So it is surprising to hear that sometimes they're just not included at all in some areas. And that is really concerning because it means there's a lack of transparency. We don't understand the level of demand, although families do tell us that their children and young people can wait years for an assessment.
That's what I was going to ask. If we don't actually know how many people are on a waiting list, do you have any idea how many young people are actually waiting for the help that many of them will be needing?
Yeah, we have an idea based on freedom of information requests, including the ones that the BBC has recently undertaken. So we know that there are thousands of children, young people waiting on neurodivergent assessments, whether it's for autism or ADHD or something else. And we also know from the numbers that are coming to organisations like ours that there are hundreds, if not thousands of families really struggling on waiting lists. And while these children, young people are on waiting lists, they're missing out on key, social and life events, relationships with their peers, and crucially, a lot of them are missing out on an education.
There will be a lot of people like in Rosie's situation, and people who've been forced to go private, they feel, yes. and parents who are guardians spending money. Do you have any idea just how many people are are doing that, are having to go private?
We don't know the exact numbers of people who are having to go private, but we know that it's a lot of people, again, because of those who come to us with inquiries, looking for support and guidance and advice, that many of them are turning to private diagnosis because they have no other option. Obviously, that's not an option for everyone, and also families should be aware that not all public services in Scotland in every area accept private diagnosis. So if you get a private diagnosis, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you support. So families do need to be aware of that. However, in a lot of cases, it is the only option open to them, and they want that assurance of their suspicions that, you know, their child or young person is autistic or has ADHD, so they want to go down that route.
What kind of difference does it make to a young person when they do finally get that diagnosis? We got a sense of that from Rosie there.
Yeah, a huge difference. And I think it's really important to say that it's not just about being able to access support, although we know that having a diagnosis makes that much easier. It's also very life-affirming and validating for children and young people to receive a diagnosis. It allows them to understand themselves better, learn more about themselves so that they can make their way in the world and reach their full potential. So it has huge impact, both in terms of the support they can receive, but also, you know, for their own self-worth, their own views of themselves and what they feel like they can achieve in life.
Yeah, I'm sure Rosie's not the only person that feels like that. Susie Martin, thanks very much for joining us in the studio. Thank you. Well, we've been reporting on a series of crimes across the Central Belt in recent weeks, with police looking into potential links to an ongoing gangland feud. And overnight, 2 more fire-raising attacks in homes in Bishopbriggs, north of Glasgow. Police have also issued a warning over what they called a cowardly attack on a 72-year-old woman and a 12-year-old boy inside a house in Glasgow's Milton. Again, thought to be linked to this feud. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan has been speaking to detectives.
We are following all lines of inquiry. At the moment, we're assessing those to be linked. So again, there's a full investigation team looking at that, how the links may be to the feuds happening in the east of the country. So we're keeping an open mind. However, we believe these to be targeted attacks again. And what I'd like to do is reassure the public that we are investigating these. It's been taken very seriously. Significant resource, both locally and from Specialist Crime Division of Police Scotland, are looking at these cases, and we are working hard to bring those responsible to justice.
It appears that what's going on is becoming increasingly dangerous. We've had people assaulted in their home, houses set on fire in the early hours of the morning. This isn't petering out, is it? This appears to be escalating, if anything.
Well, what I can say is that you'll be aware there have been a number of arrests made and a number of high-profile arrests made in regard to this. So this is another incident. There's no doubt about it. This weekend there was a spiking incident, and that's why we're investigating this. But you will see that Police Scotland is doing everything they can to reassure the public and also bring those responsible to justice.
The public will be worried about this, won't they? I mean, the public are seeing a number of attacks, I think 12 by my reckoning in the last 6 weeks across the country. Guns being fired, houses set on fire, property set on fire, people assaulted. When do you hope to get a grip on this? When do you hope to bring it to an end?
Well, as you know, there have been a significant number of incidents and a significant number of arrests and police activity that you would have seen. This is ongoing. It wouldn't be right for me to put a time frame on it. However, there are arrests imminent. There will be arrests over the next few days as well. So I would like to reassure the public that this is getting taken very seriously. There is significant resource, both locally and regionally, nationally, across Police Scotland, and we will be making arrests and bringing people to justice.
Now, it's hard for anyone to deal with a cancer diagnosis, but that's especially true for young people. Erin Lavery was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in August last year when she was in her early 20s. She's now established a high profile on social media where she talks about what she's been going through and has built a community of tens of thousands of followers. Our reporter Morven McKinnon grabbed a chat with her.
Andy,
Erin Lavery was living a normal life working as a nail technician. But after months of feeling unwell, she was eventually diagnosed with cancer at the age of just 21.
I spoke about everything, all my symptoms, what it was like.
Soon after her diagnosis, Erin wanted to share her story on social media to raise awareness, where she now has more than 55,000 followers.
I'd shaved my head before I even started treatment, and when I'd done that I was like, well, if I'm shaving it I'm also going to donate it, so I donated it to the Little Princess Trust.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
it was obviously I made a video so I could fundraise for them, and it was when I posted that video, I think a lot of people really liked how like upbeat I was, because in the video I'm like laughing, giggling, and you know, it wasn't a sad thing for like, which it is a sad thing, but for me it was very much like, no, I was taking control of the situation and that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was kind of, after I posted that video, a lot of people liked it, and then a lot of people became invested because they were like, oh well, how is your chemo going, and like what's the plan, like what's happening. So then I just started like, you know, this is something that I want to raise awareness for. That's something we used to do.
Now 22, Erin feels there is a lack of discussion around people her age who have cancer.
I think the age group that I'm in is a very kind of missed age when it comes to cancer. Like, everyone knows that really old people get cancer, everyone knows that, you know, you see these teeny wee children with cancer and it's horrible, but you don't really see this kind of like young adults with it. So for a lot of people it can be extremely isolating and lonely. So that then opened up, like, it made me see how many other young people are out there, and kind of I could connect with all of them, so it was really nice.
As chemotherapy can significantly impact fertility, Erin often thinks about the prospects of starting a family.
That was kind of the first two questions that I had when I was diagnosed. So I was like, right, okay, so am I going to lose my hair? Yeah, definitely. And then I was like, so what's happening with my fertility? And for me, because I was so unwell, they had to start chemo straight away. So we didn't have the option of maybe thinking about like fertility preservation or anything like that. It was just like, I had to start my treatment and get on with it. And again, like for this age group, like that is a massive thing. Even the fact knowing that it's not just you going through this, and there are so many young people, and it's like girls and boys, you know, everyone that is going through these toxic treatments, this is a side effect of it. It's nice to have people your own age that really can help you out with that.
She's currently waiting on the results of a scan to see what route her treatment will take. But whatever that may bring, she'll be taking her positivity and followers along the way. Morven McKinnon, reporting Scotland.
Oh, what an incredible young woman, and we wish Erin all the best with her treatment. Let's get a roundup then of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland today, shall we? And Scottish ministers' pay will rise by more than £19,000 after the government partially ended a voluntary pay freeze that was introduced in 2009 following the global financial crisis. One of Scotland's largest companies, the engineering giant Wood Group, has received a £242 million takeover approach. The offer has come from Dubai-based firm Sadara. A 47-year-old man has been taken to hospital after being stabbed in Edinburgh. Emergency services were called to reports of a serious assault in Abbey Hill at 6 o'clock this morning. Well, for more information on all of these stories, you can scan that QR code on your screen now and it will take you straight to the BBC Scotland News app, where there is more for you, including the artist that's been celebrating Edinburgh's pubs by recreating them as miniature models. Well, the future of Grangemouth Refinery is back on the agenda after the UK government took a steel-making plant in England into public ownership over the weekend. The Falkirk site, Scotland's only oil refinery, is due to close this year with the loss of around 400 jobs. Owners, PetroIneos, say Grangemouth is operating at a loss. They say hundreds of thousands of pounds a day. In a policy announcement earlier, the First Minister said new challenges in the global economy made the case for Grangemouth to also be nationalised.
What I'm setting out today is the fact that those economic headwinds have a consequence for Scotland as well, and therefore we need a commensurate approach. And that has been my persistent call to enable us to extend the life of Grangemouth. It has added urgency because of what is now happening to us in the international economic climate.
Well, we can chat now to Ewan Gibbs, an energy and industry historian at Glasgow University. Ewan, thanks for joining us in the studio tonight.
Hi.
So we've heard from John Swinney saying that Grangemouth should be nationalised. Should it be? How straightforward would that be?
I think it's frustrating that John Swinney and the Scottish Government have come to this position now. The closure of the refinery at Grangemouth was announced in the autumn of 2023 by its owners, PetroIneos, and since then, campaigners, particularly Unite the Union, the main union at the refinery, have made the case for public ownership, and it would have made much more sense, I think, for the Scottish Government to have come out for public ownership much sooner. The refinery is now in the process of closing down, and workers are already starting to leave. The redundancy notices have been issued. I should say it's not just those 400 workers or so that are being made redundant from the refinery that we're talking about. There's a wider supply chain that's responsible for perhaps 2,800 jobs dependent on refining. So that's been dislocated already by these closure decisions. Having said that, Grangemouth is an essential part of Scotland and Britain's energy infrastructure, and I think there's a very, very strong case for taking it into public ownership in a situation where we have global instability and flows of energy.
Going to say, is the current insecurity and the changes in the global market that certainly we've seen recently, has that made it a more persuasive argument?
Well, I think it was already a persuasive argument. And bear in mind, 2023, November 2023, that was a year and a half after Russia invaded Ukraine. And, you know, we had turmoil in global energy markets, a sharp spike in energy prices. And actually, Grangemouth Refinery recorded a very good financial record in its last registered accounts for that year. So it's potentially an economically viable unit as well as an essential one.
Mm-hmm. The Scotland Office Minister, Kirsty McNeil, she said that the UK government was providing more than 200 million to protect the future of Grangemouth. And she said that the circumstances there can't be compared to what we've seen over the weekend in the steel industry and what's happening in Scunthorpe. What would you say to that? Is that the case?
I think firstly, if we're going to be doling out hundreds of millions of pounds of public money, we might be asking what we're getting back for it. Why isn't the UK government, for instance, seeing an equity stake at Grangemouth, even if it's not outright nationalisation? Why doesn't the offer of that sort of volume of money not come with some sort of public stake and say in the running of the site? I think that the difference the UK government will highlight is that Scunthorpe is the last blast furnace in the UK. Grangemouth is, though, Scotland's only oil refinery. It's one of only 6 in the UK. I would also suggest that while we are moving towards an economy where refined oil products are going to play a less important role in our energy system, we still depend on them now. They're still important for our energy security, but also it's much more easy to adapt a working refinery towards, say, sustainable aviation fuel production, which Unite the Union have produced a plan that's currently sitting with the UK and Scottish governments that they say would enable the refinery to be quite quickly adapted for that purpose. If the refinery shuts, it'll be much, much harder and much more expensive to achieve those sorts of changes.
Absolutely, to imagine. So, Ewan Gibbs, I'm so sorry we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Thank you for that. You are watching the news at 7, still to come on the programme. The Glasgow Park, known for its Highland cows, currently welcoming its latest batch of calves, with dozens expected.
And after some spring warmth and plenty of sunshine last week, this week we have a very different feel to the weather, a different side to spring. Stay tuned for the forecast before the end of the programme.
Yes, all of that's still to come for you in a few minutes, but first let's get tonight's sports news with Lewis. And Lewis, the Premiership split in 2 at the weekend, and it was full of excitement.
It always is, isn't it, Amy? We love it. Good evening there. Yes, the weekend brought clarity to who would and who wouldn't make the top 6 of the Premiership. For St Mirren, scenes of joy. More of that later. But dejection for Motherwell and Hearts and their head coach here, Neil Critchley. This is how the table looks after 33 matches. Celtic up the top could get the single point they need to clinch the title away to Dundee United in 2 weeks' time. St Mirren have already beaten Rangers and Paisley this season. They'll meet there again in their first post-split match. And the bottom 6 teams here will be desperate to avoid the relegation playoff or worse. On Saturday, Hearts were unable to take the 3 points they needed against Motherwell to guarantee a top 6 spot, but a disappointing season could yet be turned around when they play Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup semis on Saturday.
If you look at Hearts, we've seen some really good performances and we've seen some, unfortunately, some pretty poor performances, and we've seen some average, so it's been a kind of average time of season for Hearts, but you can turn an average season into something really, really special now by going and winning on Saturday. Because, as I say, you win Saturday, the Hearts fans will then, it'll give them a bit of momentum, a bit of excitement for the last 5 league matches ahead of the cup final.
OK, let's get to St Mirren now. And their 3-2 win over Ross County on Saturday, coupled with the goalless draw between Motherwell and Hearts, meant the Buddies reached the top 6. And earlier, the club's Chief Operating Officer, Keith Lasley, explained what it meant to the club.
I think it's a huge moment for us as a club. You know, I think everybody knows in Scottish football, for us to do this 3 years in a row is a pretty big achievement, you know, given some of the resource that I think some of the other clubs you know, have got. So I think it's testament to the club as a whole. You know, we're a community driven club, fan owned football club. from the boardroom all the way down through the staff, obviously Stephen and his football staff, the academy, the operational side of the club. I think everybody should take a sense of pride in what this achievement means to us.
Are we already seeing as well, Keith, some of the financial benefits of guaranteeing that top six, and that Jonah Ayunga has just signed a new deal, and will it potentially allow the club to plan that little bit more for next season when maybe you wouldn't have had those guarantees?
Yeah, it does. Obviously sitting in my chair now, it's one of the things. Certainly got a few more grey hairs, as you can probably see from the screen. But no, I mean, planning's not an easy thing to do in Scottish football, but certainly securing that top six spot, as you say, it does let us just move forward with a bit more comfort in some of these decisions. And a lot of that planning was already in place, and your scenario planning maybe for plan A, B, C, and beyond. But yeah, now that we have got that, we can really kick on with that decision-making processes. There's still, I know there's a gap there, but we've got 5 games left as well, and we want to finish strong. We know that European spot would be an outside chance, I think it's fair to say, but although Saturday was fantastic, we want to keep going. Big games remaining, and then let's see where we finish up.
And of course, with success on the pitch, first and foremost, it does bring the crowds, doesn't it? The crowds are up and up, the atmosphere fantastic at full time. How important is it to savour these moments at the club, not just in terms of the dressing room or in your position, Keith, but for the fans to enjoy these significant moments like that?
Yeah, you've got to enjoy it. I mean, I think there's enough tough times in football. I mean, even this season alone, there's well documented. There's been some ups and downs, it's fair to say. So when you get a moment like that, and I think it just felt everyone was together in the stadium. It happened, the way it happened late on, and we obviously knew we had to keep half an eye on another result elsewhere. But the way the stadium, and obviously moving from Love Street 15 years ago, now creating real memories at our new stadium, and Saturday was another one of those, and hopefully there's still more to come, but that was certainly a special one.
Well, Scotland suffered a disappointing defeat against Italy in the Women's Six Nations in Edinburgh yesterday, losing 25-17 in a match many fancied them to win. Scotland's only victory so far was the opener at home to Wales, but defeats by France and now Italy leave Scotland in 5th place, in touching distance of Ireland and Italy, but a very long way behind the leaders England and second placed France. Scotland got to within 3 points of the Italians at the Hive yesterday when Fran McGee touched down, but as they pressed for the winner, Ora Muzzo scored her second try of the match to clinch the win. With a game against England next, Scotland back Lisa Thompson hopes the team can learn from their mistakes.
We know that Italy are they're really good rugby players, and like I said, we've been in tight battles with them for years, so we know what they're capable of, and we need to not let them play their game. And we got caught up playing their game as Scotland, got caught up in the chaos, but we need to be better next week. We worked our way up the pitch, and we need to be better in goal zone. We need to be better in their 22. We're in there for how long, and we're not coming away with points, so it's not good enough.
Well, we finish the sport tonight with a special mention for Bruce Mowat, Grant Hardy, Bobby Lammy and Hammy McMillan, who made history yesterday by becoming the first team to win 4 Grand Slam of curling events in a single season. And that's in addition to being the world champions too. A week ago, Team Mowat beat Switzerland's Team Schwaller to win the 2nd title in Saskatchewan. And yesterday the rinks met again in the Players' Championship final in Toronto. Mowat nailed his final shot in overtime to add that Players' Championship title to the Tour Challenge, the National and the Canadian Open. That's 4 out of 5 Grand Slams in one season, a feat never achieved before. As for the 5th, that was won by Scotland's Team White.
So what an achievement.
Quite a few weeks of celebrating, I think, there for the guys. Hope they're okay.
Incredible, yes.
Hope they're recovering.
Now, Liz, I think what we're moving on to next, I think these guys and girls are your neighbours. They are.
Enjoy we run through the Pollock Park, absolutely.
Yes, they're a famous symbol of Scotland, and who doesn't love Highland Cow? Look at their cute little faces. Well, Pollock Country Park has been home to them for almost 200 years, would you know, and is currently welcoming its newest bunch of calves. 31 of them are expected by the end of June. As you'll see, they're already attracting a lot of attention.
Altogether, we are expecting 31 calves at Pollock Country Park. The first calf born of the year was called Chorak. Then the next 2 born, which were born on the same day, were Una Ru and Una Du. Ru meaning red and Du meaning black. They have lovely, beautiful, symmetrical horns, a nice long coat, and their beautiful Dawsons, which is their fringe. We name all the calves after their mums, so it won't be just Chorak, it'll be Chorak the 4th or Chorak the 5th. I can't remember the exact number that we're on now, but I know in the Susies we're getting up to the 70s now, so we've had a lot of Susies being born. They're all doing very well, all very sprite, running about the field like dafties, and then they always like to have a good nap afterwards. All the calves tend to have different personalities, but we find that their personalities coincide with their mum. The Susie line, they're a very docile line, so they are compared to the Unas, which are quite quiet, quite reserved. And then there's the Choraks that can be a wee bit boisterous, but they are very kind of loving as well. Most of the cows do enjoy interacting with humans. They will come up to the fence line to get a scratch and a wee rub from them. They love a head scratch. See, right between where their ear and their horns are, as well as the tail, they quite like a scratch on their tail.
I think the cows are so cute. I live around the corner, I do my run every day going past them, and it's honestly the best part. The calves are adorable. I've never seen the calves before. I've seen the big Highland cattle before, but they're so cute.
It's my friend's wee girl, but this is her first time coming to see the calves, but she comes for the park. She's not interested in the cows. It's me and her mum that are interested in coming to see the cows.
Yeah, how many parents use their kids as an excuse? The best thing about a walk round Pollok Country Park. What's the weather looking like for a walk though, Kirsten? Because it's certainly got a lot colder. I certainly noticed that this morning.
It really has, Amy. If you think back a week ago, we were forecasting warmth, sunshine, just lovely conditions, but a different side to spring this week. Certainly today, it's been quite changeable. We've had a good deal of cloud around. There was some sunshine though, most notably across the northwest. So, good evening to you. We've had, yes, a very settled spell of weather, but now we're into very changeable conditions. Low pressure really never too far away, and frontal systems moving in, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. A look ahead to tomorrow morning around 9 o'clock. Cloudy skies for southern, central and eastern areas. Still some outbreaks of rain holding on across parts of Aberdeenshire and Murray. The brightest conditions, excuse me, across the northwest, with just a scattering of showers here. As we go through the day, the rain will generally fizzle and fade away. A good deal of cloud will remain, though thick enough to produce the odd spot of drizzle at times. Some fine sunshine, though, to come around western coasts, just an odd shower, and temperature-wise around 11 to 13 Celsius. Wednesday, there is a degree of uncertainty regarding the forecast. This area of low pressure gradually pushing northwards, and its associated frontal systems, but as I say, the exact positioning of them open to some doubt. We are, however, expecting a fairly cloudy day with persistent and heavy outbreaks of rain for many, some heavy downpours in the east, temperatures down a notch with a chilly north to northeasterly flow. For Thursday, and we return to sunshine and scattered showers. They'll be slow moving, heavy at times, and temperatures up a notch. The extended outlook, well, low pressure continues to drive proceedings, but there are just some signs that high pressure may begin to take hold again throughout the latter stages of the week, but a lot to play for, and it's one to stay tuned to the forecasts for. But on Friday, we have areas of rain affecting many parts of the UK, especially in the west. A similar story on Saturday, tending to dry out further east, and temperature-wise around the average for the time of year. So just in summary, a fairly changeable and unsettled week of weather ahead. That's the forecast. Back to you, Amy.
Back to the typical Scottish weather.
Exactly.
Raleigh's out. Absolutely. Thanks very much. And thanks to you for joining us. As always, you can keep up to date on the BBC Scotland News app. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.